This certainly looks like footage that I shot handheld of someone playing Space Harrier on a CRT, right? Wrong, this is the Space Harrier arcade machine in virtual reality. This is possible thanks to Age of Joy. Let me tell you all about it. One of the first things I was wondering when I got my MetaQuest 3S was, is there a way to play arcade machines in VR? This might sound like a weird thing to think about out of the blue, but I do remember Vinny about a decade ago playing a game called New Retro Arcade, over on Steam that did this exact thing. I remember thinking it was so stupidly cool, and evidently that stuck with me all these years later. Unfortunately, however, the game was left abandoned in a buggy state, so I was wondering if anyone else had decided to tackle this concept, and a single game dev called Fabio Curry did just the thing. Over on Meta's platform, you start outside the Age of Joy arcade, and even here we get a lot of details to make you feel like you are truly in the 80s. From the station wagons with wood grain, to the telephone with a Reagan Bush 84 sticker, it's all pretty cool. If you jump down the manhole, you end up in one of the 20 plus rooms. However, this one's particularly special as it's a pass-through room. This lets you put one arcade machine of choice into your living space. It's a gimmick, sure, but it's a neat gimmick. When we enter the arcade, we get placed in a lobby room of sorts. Each time you enter any room, the posters do change around, but they are all based around 80s films, again helping to make you feel like you're in the 80s. There are NPCs within the rooms. You can choose to switch them off should you find them annoying, but I do kind of like their gomlessness, and how they ignore you unless you touch them. Although when they sometimes walk through you when playing an arcade machine, it did make me jump quite a few times. Each room has one or multiple specific NPC characters that spawn. I like this 80s anarchy metal man, or the girl who constantly blows bubbles, or the diva in her diva room. As there are over 20 rooms as previously mentioned, the arcade is huge and very quickly ends up feeling like a maze. I had to shoot the footage for this video 3 times as I kept making recording errors, and each time I ended up accidentally discovering a new room, because I had accidentally walked the wrong way or into the wrong door. Some rooms are generically themed, while others have a specific theme, like the previously mentioned diva room or the pit stop, which is where I put all of my racing games. We get to see a girl sitting down on a DeLorean, which is neat, but maybe it would have been cooler if it was the Back to the Future one? One fantastic room that I accidentally went into was the Japanese room, that is set in a little shop in Osaka. As someone who's walked down that street recently, it did feel a little freaky. I also adored the little details, such as the 80s coin dispenser machine having Japanese writing in this room only, as well as the classic green NTT landline telephone that I have of course seen in real life. And yes, the environmental detail is the name of the game here, like how the room after the lobby is full of CRTs that play television from that era, the aforementioned 80s coin changer machines that I've learnt about from LGR, the Pepsi dispensers with other drinks that have since been long discontinued. It would have been cool if there was more interactivity in these environments, like Steam VR Home or Half-Life Alyx, but the game is still incomplete to my understanding, or at least in active development, with the last build having been compiled in April 2025. Setting up the arcade has been an absolute headache and has taken me about 3 or 4 days in total. This is purely due to the scattered documentation for this game. To not slow down the pace of this video, I'll leave my issues and a basic guide at the end of this video, but once I fully set up the arcade, man, it's so cool. Some cabinets are rather pixelated, though of course that's purely visual, but many cabinets have such high quality artwork. Things such as screen borders and marquees look like the original vector art. Well, I don't think vector art existed in the 80s, but you know what I mean. Likewise, as seen in the beginning of this video, the arcade cabinets have CRTs with scanlines and curves like a real CRT, and sometimes you can catch reflections on them too. Some special arcade machines, such as Space Invaders, even have the overlay just like the real arcade. Age of Joy by default supports Final Burn Neo, MAME 2003 and MAME 2010. However, if you happen to come across the documentation, which good luck finding on Google, you will find out that other retro art cores are supported, including Game Boy, SNES, NES, Genesis and PS1. Sadly, the cores are unable to use hardware acceleration, which means PS1 is the latest console that you can emulate. This is a shame, as I would like to see Naomi and Dreamcast games here. Being able to play the 18-wheeler arcade would be a dream come true. Likewise, any emulators that don't have RetroArch cores, such as Supermodel, you're out of luck on sadly. Impressively however, light gun games work perfectly here. I have Duck Hunt and Time Crisis, the latter of which is using a PS1 core. And yeah, these are awesome to play here, especially since LTT just made a video on a console that comes with Time Crisis and a light gun, and that costs £30 less than my MetaQuest 3S. What a joke. Tracking seems near enough solid too. Speaking of controls, most games tend to have good meta controller mappings. However, this can be customized, or you can use a third-party controller like a PlayStation controller. Though I believe you still need the meta controllers to put the coin in and to exit. This might be remappable, I haven't tried. I mentioned that Age of Joy is in active development, and this is noticeable by the amount of bugs that I've come across. Fine, me falling out of a level was due to me physically clipping out of bounds, but I have noticed especially when emulating the PS1, that sometimes all of the arcade machines unload into a generic LOD model, and the only way to fix this is by closing the game and reopening it. If you are in the game, hitting the Mets button will crash the game. When replacing the arcade cabinets in the service menu, sometimes slot 000 will get overwritten despite you having selected a different slot. Not a bug but an annoyance, many of the game's quality of life features such as teleporting to reduce motion sickness aren't accessible in the service menu. I forgot how you turn it on, so I have just gone without it and just make sure to take regular breaks. But overall, Age of Joy is indeed a joy to play around with, and I'm really glad that this project exists. If you have a MetaQuest and have enabled sideloading, I do recommend checking it out.